Hello, and welcome back to Around the Counter with Molly and Friends. I'm Molly Jones, and this is a podcast for people who care about Utah politics. Joining me today is Tenille Taggart. Her background is in clinical psychology and forensic mental health. She's a seasoned community organizer and a recent candidate for the Salt Lake County Council at large seat. Welcome Around the Counter, Tenille.
Thanks so much, Molly.
How are you doing today?
I'm good.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'm a little tired. My poor little dog is dealing with some injuries, so we were kind of up in the middle of the night. But other than that,
Yeah.
good.
Good.
How about you?
I'm great. Had a big party this weekend. I think everybody who is a person should have a party to celebrate themselves. It's like a cornerstone party to bring together your neighbors, your friends, and did that this weekend. And so I'm coming off that high a little bit. So
Amazing.
yeah. So I understand you grew up in Centerville in a pretty conservative Mormon household.
Yep.
But you've said publicly before that you kind of had to leave the state. So can you talk to us about your upbringing and about why?
Yeah, absolutely. So I was raised very conservative, very traditional LDS family, and did not realize that I was growing up gay and gender fluid. And I didn't know anyone who was out LGBTQ. I never saw it in Utah or in leadership. And so that was a big struggle for me. And once I finally started to realize that, when I was at BYU, I decided to drop out and kind of figure out how do I figure this out? Because I was going to risk losing everything that I had known and loved, my community, my university, my church, my family. And so I decided it would be easier to just move to West Hollywood and figure it out and explore it and learn very quickly that I was gay. And so
Wait.
What?
You left BYU to move to West Hollywood.
Yeah.
That is such a bold move.
Yeah. And not knowing anyone out there or
That's
what
such
I
a bold move. My goodness.
Yeah.
Do you feel like you were thriving there once you got to West Hollywood?
I would say spiritually, socially, I was, but it was a struggle to make ends meet there. And
it's expensive.
After about 6 months of being there, my landlord said that the building was not to code and I had to vacate. And so, it was never easy. And I ended up moving to Seattle after that. And then another 6 months later, well, actually, all my things that I owned in life were in my car and it all got stolen.
Really?
Yeah.
What was it like?
Even my birth certificate, my blankie from childhood, So was I thriving? No, not the greatest, but those are some of the things you go through when you're experiencing life. And so I moved back down to San Diego, and that's where I really started to thrive. And I went back to school, got my degree in psychology. So yeah, it's been a trip.
That's awesome. So you didn't just go back to school. You went on to build this incredible academic career in clinical psychology and forensic mental health. You were even awarded a prestigious National Science Foundation Graduate Fellowship in 2016. So that must have been like a moment of real split existence for you. On the one hand, you're receiving this incredible grant to study the very people, cultures, and communities that the Trump administration would later go on to demonize.
Correct. Yeah. I applied for that my first year in grad school. And when I talked to my mentor about it, he was like, I don't recommend it, but I'll support you if you want to apply. And I was like, oh, I'm absolutely going to apply.
Yeah.
And against all odds, I was awarded that. It was one of only 11 people in my, at Stony Brook to receive that award.
Wow.
And so it felt incredible that I knew that this deserved to be studied. I'd applied to research trans folks and did a lot of great research with that. But like you said, the Trump administration is now slashing all those. They're deleting the studies that have been done and trying to erase trans people. And it's awful what they're doing.
When you were studying psychology and then as you were getting into forensic mental health, what were some of I guess I'm just really curious about that. I don't know much about that. So can you tell us what it is that you were studying and what you were focused on and why you were doing that work?
Yeah. So I was doing forensic mental health during my internship, and I worked with San Bernardino County. And what I would do is I would go to the courthouse. I would interview folks who were in jail
Mhm.
and that had felony charges that were nonviolent, and then would interview them about various mental health and substance use disorders. And if we found they were a good candidate to be rehabilitated for those reasons, we would take them into this program. They would be in it for approximately 18 to 24 months. And I worked with them doing therapy. And they had a whole treatment team of people that they would work with. And they had, um, had to be sober and attend the meetings, go to a psychiatrist, see their therapist, work with a caseworker. And if they completed all of these things, then they would get their felony reduced to a misdemeanor. And this program was wildly successful. And people were, I think it was like 80% less likely to reoffend and go back to jail, which is one of the biggest problems with these types of folks is they don't get the help they need. And so it turns into a, what do they call that? The open door.
Revolving.
Yeah, revolving. I'm like, I can't think of the word.
It is an open
Revolving
door, but
door
also
situation. And so much of our money goes to that instead of focusing on rehabilitating the individual, and they
Interesting.
become productive members of society again.
Do you see any parallels between what the Other Side Academy is doing and this work you were doing? Because it seems to me like similar acts of accountability, showing up, experiencing some form of clinical training or expertise to then come out changed on the other side.
I would say it's very different. The work we did was directly involved with folks who had cases against them. We provide therapy from licensed clinicians. We provide medication. The Other Side Academy, as far as I know, is peer run. They don't have anything other than maybe like some online certificates. They don't allow people who are on medication, and then they require them to work for free. And that wasn't part of our
I see. So it's
model
a different
either.
model, a different approach.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really good. Thanks for clarifying some of
Mhm.
that. So what was like as you're working through this and you're talking to all these people and you're experiencing this, what was the moment you realized that studying the system from a distance really wasn't enough and like you needed to come back to Utah and take everything you'd learned, like all these experiences, all this life,
Yeah.
and come back because you're here right now in the flesh?
Yeah, I would say that work and what I learned in my graduate program really taught me that the system is the problem and that we are not going to fix it until we fix the system. And so that is what brought me back to Utah. I was getting burnt out, trying to fix people that were already broken because of this system. And I really wanted to have a bigger impact where they say, at some point when people are falling in the river and you're rescuing them, you have to go upstream and figure out why they're falling in the river. And that resonates very much with me. And so I decided to come back to Utah because, well, it was after COVID and I just had been living everywhere. I was in New York for grad school, San Bernardino for my internship. And I just thought, why not go back to Utah? It felt like it would be a full circle moment where I could have a really big impact now that I had grown so strong in my identity and my advocacy and speaking out for others. And I want people growing up who were like me to have an example of that.
Yeah. Well, and you jumped right headfirst into grassroots organizing. You didn't just come home and sit on your feet or sit on your thumbs, I guess.
Both of them, yeah.
Like you didn't put your feet up. So what was that? Like, what did you get involved in? And talk to us about being a grassroots organizer. Because that's really, I feel like a core of who you became.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I didn't, like I was saying, I didn't know exactly what was going to happen when I came back to Utah, but I started hearing about Trevor Lee's flag ban, pride flag ban, and that just lit me up because I'm like, here we are 20 years later, and you are still going after us? Like, sit down. And so that got me into the politics of it, where I'm like, I'm going to legislative hearings, I'm testifying, I'm talking about what it was like to grow up conservative and have these messages told to me and what that was like. And I'm going to stand up for these kids.
Hmm. So, grassroots organizing for you is about showing up to meetings where legislative leaders are making decisions. It's about going to rallies and connecting with your community.
Uh-huh.
Is there more to it? Is there a social media aspect? Is there some form of like sit in a room in a basement and talk about strategy? Like, talk us through some of that.
Yes, because you have to get the word out, right? You need
Mhm.
people to join your cause. And so I would say it's a combination of in person, where you're connecting with these other like minded individuals and building a
Mhm.
coalition, and also on social media, where you're able to sort of market and present these ideas or these times and dates to show up for certain
Mhm.
things, putting out calls to action, and really spreading that within your local community and trying to help others understand why it's important and why they need to show up.
That's cool. So, how does your clinical training shape the way that you are talking to these coalitions or talking to these people and building these coalitions?
I think that, I like to take a very Socratic Socratic approach.
Hmm.
So I ask a lot of questions. I want to understand, and especially with people that you don't agree with,
Hmm.
um, that when you ask them these questions and you're trying to find out their intention, their motivation, what they're hoping to get,
Hmm.
it's easy to use their own words to say, well, that's not really what's happening here then,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so I also take a values approach and try to match that up and say, are these aligned? Is
Hmm.
this what you want to be doing? Is this who you are? Um, and it makes it easier to talk to people who have similar values to me. Like, I grew up wanting to take care of the sick, the needy, the poor, the incarcerated, the immigrant. And that's what my Mormon background taught me. And so to see that shift today, it's very disheartening, but that's kind of where I go back to of like, we have these same core values. How do we get there together?
Do you have an example, like a real life example of someone whose mind you've changed through this work?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, I would say I was very involved in the child care, the county child care situation where they took those away. And one of the people leading that charge is a single mom of 6 kids, and one of them is trans. And she consistently puts forward legislation that hurts who she is, who her kids are, and many folks, many working families here.
Hmm.
And um, when she was rerunning for her seat, her GOP opposition put out just horrible things about her trans kid, used their social media posts, and I was able to reach out and connect with her. And at the end of it, she was like, keep going. We need people like you to show up
Interesting.
and represent folks.
Interesting.
I would say that that's a
Yeah.
big shift.
What other legislation have you organized around, built a coalition around?
So I've done it for um, a lot of the trans bills, the flag banning bills, Planned Parenthood, sexual reproduction or education in schools. Um, and we'll organize protests in the Capitol. So
Hmm.
we'll go in there with our flags and scream our chants, and we'll have people talk to us. And Mike Lee's former chief of staff is like, "This isn't the way to do it," and it's like, well, they're doing it anyway, so we can go loud or we can go quiet, and we're going to go loud.
Do you think that you do you think that protests like that in person are effective?
I think that every type of action is necessary and essential, from the people who want to show up and protest at the Capitol, who want to go and meet independently, who make phone calls, who, like, we need every aspect of pressure And so I'm never going to be someone who tells someone else how to protest as long as you're doing it. Repost stuff on social media. If you can't attend a protest because of concerns, donate supplies or money or, things to help that go through, because everything that we do is essential.
And this really comes from a long historical American tradition of standing up and being loud about the things that we care about. Do you feel like you draw strength or inspiration from those movements that have come before you?
Oh, absolutely. I think a lot about, Harvey Milk.
Yeah.
He was the first openly gay elected official and was murdered over it. And the people came together. Stonewall riots, we threw a brick and it started a revolution. And it's so meaningful to me to see these and derive strength from them to keep going and to keep speaking up, and that we're not going anywhere. We're not. So that's part of why I'm back here in Utah, because we need fighters like that. We need to show these next generation of kids that we are not going anywhere. And yes, it is a fight. We're going to have to keep showing up. And there's pride in that. That's why pride is a riot.
So what was the moment that you realized you were really, truly very good at both grassroots on the ground organizing and also social media, internet, online organizing? Because I see you everywhere. You're unstoppable.
Thank you. I am normally a pretty private person. I always had my social medias private and very limited to just people I knew. And when I came back to Utah and I got this fight in me that we've been talking about, I thought, I'm just going to start putting out there what I do and being authentic. And if I can help just one person, then it's worth it to me. And so that I never planned to have a social media following or anything like that, other than connecting with people locally who want to do some cool stuff. So people felt that, and it has taken off. And it's pretty wild.
I bet. How do you take all that excitement that you see online and all of that conversation and turn it into real world building, like coalition on the ground, actually making change? I feel in a lot of ways the work that we do here at Around the Counter, we have a lot of ideas and they're good.
Yeah.
But how do you then take that and turn it into something that creates a change that, prevents the Salt Lake County Council from closing their daycares, that prevents, Representative Lee from passing a bill that, vilifies the type of flag you choose to fly?
Yeah, and those are great examples, because even though we fought like hell, they all still passed. And so it's not necessarily about achieving that correct outcome, as it is that we're not going to take this sitting down, and we're going to show up and we're going to tell you, and then we've got to show up in the ballot box and vote these people out. When they show us they don't care about working families, they don't care about the vulnerable, they don't care about keeping homes affordable so that the people working here can also live here. We need to really start connecting people's hearts and minds over those values. So when I would talk about the childcare centers, I was out in parking lots handing out flyers, chatting with these folks, working with these parents who needed this assistance. And people would be like, that's atrocious. What? What is the county council? And I'm like, exactly. It's so important. Local politics is so much more important than the president. It has such an effect on our daily life and what resources are available to us. And so any way that you can start getting involved locally is really what matters, and connecting with your neighbors and taking care of each other, because at this point we see the government is not.
Love it. Say it again. That sounds amazing. So as a psychologist, you do understand human behavior. How are you using some of the tools in your toolbox from your learned experiences to help build this movement bigger than ever? Because I feel like I've seen over the last 2 years with you, you kind of tentatively started, and now you went from like a couple thousand followers to you have 60,000 followers the last time I looked. And you also have successfully run for office, which we'll get into here in a second. But there's a lot there that you have to deal with as you're working towards that. So I guess I'm wondering, like, personally, what kind of tools are you using to make sure that it doesn't take a drain off of you?
Yeah.
Because for you to burn yourself out means that we lose someone with passion and desire and interest. And I think that that happens far too often.
Yeah. I think that's a great question because it is easy to get burned out in this work. And having a social media following, it always opens you up to criticism and attacks. And so, I have good friends that I talk to and open up about this. I take time off the internet. I like to be in person. Take care of myself with going on bike rides, with hanging out with my dog and just loving on him, and doing things that I know are good for me. Remembering to eat, stay hydrated, like some of those basic things, sleep.
There's really only one rule to living with me, and it is feed your Molly. So I get that at my root core.
Yeah, and it's so important. And people doing work like this, it's so easy to forget. Oh yeah, I need to sleep.
And don't you also think that I really, really, truly in my heart believe that a shared meal is bigger. It's more than just eating. It's about coming together with people. It's about this safety and security. It's about getting to know people. It's about shared ideas. It's about just time spent in person. Man,
breaking bread together. It's a powerful tool.
Breaking bread to break fascism.
Yeah. it'll be a thing.
We got to work on it. Yeah. Breaking bread to break. Okay. Listeners, write in. We're ready to hear what that slogan is because we haven't quite got there yet. Okay. And then just kind of the last question. Do you think social media has democratized Utah politics by letting grassroots candidates like yourself bypass the traditional party gatekeepers? Or is it just creating a new kind of viral echo chamber? Specifically, some examples of this viral echo chamber. I think pre-Elon Musk, Twitter was a left-wing echo chamber. Anytime I'd pop on there, I'd be like, oh, this is very liberal. This is, and everybody had very rosy ideas about how things would go, especially for the 2016 campaign. Then presidential campaign. Then Trump gets elected and Musk buys Twitter. It becomes X. And now I feel like when I go on X, it's a right-wing echo chamber. And I think that there's a dramatic disconnect between the conversations that happen in those spaces and the conversations that are happening, as we just talked about, around the dinner table.
Yep.
So within Utah politics itself, do you think there's that kind of echo chamber happening?
Yes, I absolutely do. And I would point to, nationally and probably internationally that is true. We've seen Deja Fox and Kat Abou-Ghazaleh, who were prolific on social media, would have been fantastic progressive candidates. They lose.
Where were they running?
Illinois, and I think Deja was in Arizona or New Mexico.
Okay.
So, as much as I'm out there on social media, the people who are voting in my race are not the ones who are watching me on social media necessarily.
Do you think, thinking even more locally, that was part of what Nate Bluin was in his calculation? Because I feel like Nate has a pretty strong social media presence and following, but I feel like the returns didn't represent that.
Yeah, I would say that's a similar situation where the people voting for him likely were not totally involved in his social media.
How do you connect that then? Right? Because it's you've run for office. And I mean, how do you find the right people to talk to as a candidate that then help power you into the position that you're seeking?
So it's a lot of talking with your constituents, the people who are going to be voting for you.
Are you telling me it's door knocking?
It's calling, it's door knocking, it's showing up in person to events, and it's also another big part of it is having trusted key individuals who are also helping you do that and saying, hey, you really need to check out Tenille. This is what I like about her. So I would have people say, oh, so-and-so told me I need to know you and that I need to vote for you. And
Wow.
we would get to have a conversation about that. So I would say it is in person, and it's hitting the doors and doing the calls and making those connections. There's no easy way around it.
You know, I got a degree in political science, and when I was studying that in like 2010 or whatever, I remember that literature said, you know, the best way to approach a voter and to talk to a voter and to convince someone to vote for you is to knock on their door. And here we are in 2026, and I feel like that remains true over and over and over again.
Mhm.
You can have these incredible, you know, analytics and data, and you can do whatever you want. But at the end of the day, if you really want to live at the succeed, at the local level, you got to go knock on people's
You do.
doors. That's amazing. So speaking of running for office, you took the plunge in, I think it was 25, and you ran for Salt Lake County Council District 1.
Mhm.
And then after not succeeding at that, you then ran this year for Salt Lake County Council at large. Your platform was focused on community resources, housing and affordability, and criminal justice system reform. What was it like to run for those two campaigns?
Yeah, the first one was wild because, you know, originally when I came back, I had no idea that I was going to run for office. But as I continued to do these things, it just put me in the position of like, I had taken campaign trainings, candidate trainings, things like that. And this position for District 1 unexpectedly opened up because they were promoted to deputy mayor. And so we had 3 weeks to run a campaign, and there was 17 people who were also running.
17?
And so it was quick and dirty. But like with 17 people in, it's a crapshoot.
Mm-hmm.
Anybody is as likely as anyone else to win. And so I wasn't banking on it, but it did give me a little taste. And when I was talking to
Was that a delicious
voters,
taste?
It was more fun to run a very short campaign than a very prolonged one, I'll say that. But what came out of that is that, so it went 13 rounds because it was ranked choice voting. And I was out in the 9th round, and me and the person who won, Gito Johnson, were the only ones who didn't pay political firms to make us win. And so I felt very good about that and was like, that's incredible. And I had been telling voters, if you don't see me, if I don't win here, you're going to see me again running for 2026. Well, immediately after that election, Gito took me to coffee and he said, I believe in you and I want to support you and endorse you for the at-large position.
Really?
Yeah.
What a clever move, Gito.
So
why was that persuasive to you? Why did you choose to run for the at-large seat versus go back up against him for another head-to-head where the voters, not the delegates, are choosing you?
Yes, technically the delegates still choose because you have to go to convention and make it through convention. Right. But I really believe in Gito. I think he's an incredible asset to have on the council. And so that's why I didn't want to run for his seat. I really believe he should be in there. And it is one of the most, it's the most progressive seat on the council. So I wanted to continue to support him and then get another progressive voice in the at-large position.
Interesting. So you have talked to you, maybe not on this call, but between us, we've had conversations before about how you felt like you wanted to run for office to fix things for your community, right? And we've talked a little bit about your organizing and what you did. And I'm curious, did you ever feel like you kind of you were grassroots organizing, you were talking to people, you were on the ground, then you're doing this, quick campaign, and then you're doing a longer campaign. Do you feel like you kind of got sucked into the system at all?
So one of my tenets is grassroots, and I was unwilling to compromise on that. And so when I was doing the at-large run, I refused to get a political firm, the one of the big ones that everyone gets and everyone pays too much money to. And they all deliver pretty much cookie cutter campaign strategy. That was just not how I was going to do it. And I did not want a cis white hetman heading up my campaign either. I needed diverse people who believed in me and were there to support what I was doing because they believed in it. And so I got various people to help me work on that. And it's overwhelming. I didn't get any help from the Democratic Party. And when I'd ask them,
Are you talking about the county party, the state party,
both,
everyone?
anyone, yeah.
Okay.
And when I'd ask them for things like, hey, do you have a list of campaign managers who are not these main political firms in Utah? And they said, nope. And I'm like, how is this possible? Like, we need to have way more accessibility, especially for young folks, for people of color, for LGBTQ folks. Like, and there was just no support in doing that.
So I guess then what is the mismatch for you between, because you're right, there is a bit of an industry. It's nascent here in Utah, but you've got a couple of firms that work on campaigns. And then you have the party itself that works on campaigns. So what is the mismatch between wanting to solve community problems, which is what I think you want to do, and like the nuts and bolts of like actually running a campaign and like being a Democrat, so having to, by just having that label, buy into the broader system?
Yeah. I think that they could go out of their way to like go to the Hinckley Institute, get a list of the names of folks who can be interns and want to work on political campaigns. They could have given us a list. I mean, I've signed up, I'm sure you have, for the Democrats to be a volunteer, saying, I'll make calls, I'll knock doors, I'll put a sign out, I'll do this. None of that was given to candidates. And so it makes me question, what are we doing here? What are we actually doing? Because as a candidate, I did not feel any of that.
Interesting. So how does then that's about the party, but then how does the industry of political consulting, fundraising targets, and actively prevent a candidate like you from doing the work that you're trying to do?
Well, that's a great question because I think that people don't understand what that really entails, and that they are a machine that's pushing a narrative and pushing a candidate, and it is hard to break through that. And like, I didn't have these firms that go out and target people with these messaging, and have a whole army that they pay to do that. I would say they very, very much influence how politics go and who gets to step up at the table. Some of the other things that come up too are, they will say put a LGBTQ person of color up for office, and then there's none that are like qualified. That's kind of their argument, where they're like, well, they're not prepared, or they're not ready, or there's no one here who wants to do that. And that, in my mind, is where the Democratic Party needs to step up and start giving out 10 to 15 tickets to young LGBTQ people of color, disabled, marginalized people, to say, you may not be able to afford to come to this fancy fundraising dinner, but we need you to be there. You need to be there connecting with these folks so that you can fundraise when the time comes.
Okay, so the critique is more that you don't, in your opinion, there is not enough of a rising tide lifts all boats mentality. And instead, it's being led by moneyed interests that are able to make choices that are driving the party in a certain way. And your critique is that if we were able to, for lack of a better word, utilize a scholarship that would then bring forth different people who look differently, then you could build up their capacity to do things like run for office, fundraise for office, make really positive change within their communities. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, that's really interesting. So I guess I was going to say, if you could change one thing about the party, what would it be? And I think we've got it.
That was it. Yeah.
Okay, great, interesting. So anybody listening, we got you. So let's get real about the loneliness of being a candidate. I've been a candidate. You've been a candidate twice now. Um, I think a lot of people, when they think about being a candidate, they see just these glossy, like social media or these glossy mailers that have lots of people around them. You've got hordes of people knocking on doors. You're at a phone bank and there's lots of people. But like the reality is that you're at home in your basement at 1 a.m. trying to go through the
Yeah.
training to figure out how to calculate your vote goal and how to use Vote Builder to target who you're going to talk to in the next couple of weeks. And I guess what is the emotional and like psychological toll behind some of that?
It's very difficult, as you know. And it it's difficult to explain that to other people without, like, one, you don't want to complain.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you're very privileged to be able to run, and like you want to serve your community, and so it is a privilege. However, it's very difficult, and um you also don't want to share that with everyone because it can cast doubt on
Mm-hmm.
your ability to
Yeah.
lead and to be voted in. And so you've got to find those trusted individuals that you can talk to about that, typically other candidates,
Oh, yeah.
where you can just you just need a vent. And like one of the other things that I want to go back to about running for District 1, that's where I met Gito Johnson and Evan Dunn. And we would help each other out. We were each other's opposition, but we would be like, hey, have you figured this out? Hey, do you know how to do this?
Mm-hmm.
Hey, what do we do when this happens? And we just leaned in and supported each other. And I think that is the new brand of politics. I felt that way against my other opponents in this at-large race where they are not my opposition. We are all running to do the same thing. And I turned around and immediately supported Zach Robinson for
Mm-hmm.
for the at-large position because we are moving for the greater good here. And we can only do that if we take away our ego and um, lean in to support each other.
I love that. A major theme here at Around the Counter is just because you don't understand something doesn't mean it's wrong or it's impossible. And I feel like you really are leading with that by we talk a lot about lifting the hood to expose the machine underneath
Mhm.
and figure that out. So I'm curious, like, as we sort of wrap up this section about being a candidate, what is something about power building that the average person sitting at their counter just doesn't understand that you feel like you have a really clear understanding of now?
And when you say power building, what do you mean exactly?
You've been power building this whole time, right? And power comes in different ways. And it's about creating a collection of people, a movement, a coalition, whatever it is you want to call it,
Sure.
that then you can execute in a certain way to create something that's different, some change or something that you want.
Mhm.
So, for example, your power, I think, comes from your deep integration within the local grassroots communities. I understand you've been out protesting the ICE buildings. You've been doing a lot of work around, historically around LGBTQIA
Mhm.
plus issues. So what is it that people just misunderstand about how that's done that has helped, like, you understand it and you're able to navigate it effectively? And now you're, we're having this
Sure.
conversation today.
The thing that comes to me is that you don't have to be perfect. Your campaign doesn't have to be perfect.
And in fact, maybe it's better if it's not.
And that's kind of how I roll and how I am. And I think that brings across this authenticity that people are craving, especially
Hmm.
from um, politicians who many people don't trust right now. And so when you can just be your authentic self, when you can take accountability, like, yeah, as long as you show up, that is what matters. And that is where you start building that power and you start building that muscle. And nobody is perfect. It's never going to be perfect. You just have to take that first step.
I love that. So, as someone who's operated within the ecosystem of the progressive democratic campaign world, especially here in Utah, you've seen where the gears of the machine kind of grind to a halt. I want to talk about some of those structural issues that we were like kicking at a little bit. I want to dig into some of that. So, what is your biggest critique to how the Utah Democratic Party, either the state party or the county party, approaches grassroots organizing as someone who is a grassroots organizing leader?
Well, I think I kind of touched on it earlier in that they don't truly understand how that works, and they
How so?
treat people like a commodity, and they're not.
I think if I were sitting in their shoes, just to play a little bit of a, I think it's a
Sure.
steel man argument, whatever, steel woman argument. Um, I think they would say, we are grassroots activists. What do
Yeah.
you mean we don't understand it?
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking, but
Yeah.
the way they treat people, that is not grassroots. So, like, I've heard that, I mean, I was told myself, you can't be a volunteer for this because you're a candidate. And I'm like, okay, well, keep sending all your emails about how you want volunteers and then reject them. That's weird.
And
Um,
was that like, would you have received funds from fundraising from
no.
that event? So okay. So you feel like that's a mismatch. Like you have a body who's here who wants to help. Like that should be allowed.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I've
Okay.
also heard from other folks who've said, I have begged to volunteer. I practically had to twist their arm.
Mhm.
And then when I got to the event, they told me you can't eat any food and you can't go inside. And it's like, they didn't say, thank you. Thank you so much for being here. They,
Interesting.
they don't treat people
Mhm.
like people.
And
And
that's a core part of being a grassroots organizer is seeing the
yes,
person as their whole self and then advocating for them on their issue.
Yep.
Or advocating more importantly
Together.
with them. Yeah, not for them, excuse me, with
Yeah.
them. That's the better word. So, do you feel like the party, I guess one of the things I've been thinking a lot about, just to like level set here, is that part of the reason why I wanted to start around the counter and do this kind of work and have these exact conversations is I feel like there's a cycle for messaging where campaign season is coming and you know it's coming and the if you're a delegate and you're part of the party, in the spring you're paying attention to the convention and caucus system. And then, in the early summer, you're paying attention to the primary. And if you're a primary voter, you're paying attention to that. But like very few people in the grand scheme of things are actually doing that. And then it's like October when it hits a fever pitch and everybody's getting advertised to. But in my mind, I think that's important for a campaign and a candidate. But I think that the broader infrastructure needs to be communicating and talking about these kinds of issues year round.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big part of what I'm hearing from you right now is like you can be fine at turning out a candidate, but do you have the movement, the people, the ideology, the ideas behind you, and have you spent years building that up? Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely. And so many people have no idea what's going on with their politics. Like I was saying, most people didn't even know there was a Salt Lake County Council. No idea what it does. And then they slashed all the affordable county daycares. And people are like, oh my God, what is the county council even? What is happening? 74% of their budget is going to criminal justice, which is the jails, the sheriff, and the DA's office. That is a lot of money to be put into punishing people rather than taking care of them. So putting $1 into daycare saves you $9 in criminal justice later on. It protects kids from getting abused. It protects them from going hungry. It protects them from getting into trouble because they have no one there to watch them. Doing drugs, stealing, whatever it is. Like, we are making short-term decisions for we're saving $2.53 on taxpayers' bill for the year, but we're losing because now those kids are not going to be taken care of, and it's going to have an impact down the road. And we're going to need to further rely on the criminal justice system, which is wrong, in my opinion.
So the argument is that, if I understand right, by not communicating effectively year round, we're losing out on key opportunities to be capitalizing on things that are happening or that could happen that would truly deeply benefit our communities. And instead, we're viewing things through a reactive, monetarily minded mindset. And so you think that we should be spending more time talking to people year round to prevent some of those mistakes.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. So there's in politics, you talk about Grasstops. Those are things like consultants, opinion leaders, community influencers, donors, and personal friends of a candidate. And then you have the grassroots, which are the like broader spectrum of, people who are maybe single issue voters. They care a lot about like the Great Salt Lake, or they care about air quality, or they care about, Medicare for all. Those are kind of single issue voters. Or you have just like, local people who are here to advocate. They show up at city council meetings, but they're not involved in running a campaign. They're not a candidate, right? So you have your Grasstops, and then you have your grassroots. So does high level messaging, like thinking really, really, really high level, not nuts and bolts, not like bullet points, just like simple slogans, does that alienate the actual communities that you want to galvanize? I think you do a lot of this on your social media really well. And I'm just curious how you feel about that, because in my mind, it's like you need to be like the perfect example. I love this is click it or ticket.
Yeah.
There's so much underneath that is policy, but that sloganeering bit is brilliant and connects to people. Like, and I guess I'm not explaining myself very well. Do you feel like there's just we're just not doing a good job at some of this messaging stuff between the Grasstops and the grassroots? Like the grassroots have
Absolutely.
energy.
Yeah.
And Grasstops is like suppressing it, maybe?
Yeah. I think too, it's getting lost. It's getting lost in the messaging.
Yeah, that's interesting. And so, like, if you could change the way that the party was working, like, what are some of the pieces that you would change? Like, I think a lot about messaging because that's just what I care about. And I think communications is how you talk to people, and that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But there's so much more to that that's important, right? Like, if you were to make fundamental change with your magic wand, what would that look like for the party to more accurately represent the grassroots?
I think it'd probably be important to have meetings with those folks and say what matters to you.
You
How
don't
could
think
we
that's
message
happening?
this? No, I don't.
Interesting. You've never been in a meeting like that?
Where they ask us for messaging, I guess? No.
Oh.
Have you?
On the like political consultant side, yes, but I've not been a part of the Democratic Party.
Yeah.
So that is a difference there. Outside of messaging, what could they change that you would like to see, especially for candidates like yourself? Like you're obviously passionate and interested.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of already went over some of the things, but bringing up young rising stars, putting them in the rooms with the people that are going to be the Grasstops, that are going to help with these messaging and fundraising and the knocking on the doors, and getting them prepared to run for office, because often it's just inaccessible. I would also say it's about coming up with a list of interns that want to be a campaign manager.
Yeah.
Like there's so many different opportunities that they can take. And, they will say, well, once you make it past the primary, then we'll help you. And it's like, well, we can't get to the primary if we don't have a little help. And so I would say give it equally. Give everyone a list of the volunteers. Give everyone 10 campaign, like the Progressive Caucus was amazing. They had a donor who you could either get 10 campaign signs or 250 flyers for free. Such a huge deal for grassroots candidates who could not afford this. I have seen from many other candidates that it's like life-changing for a campaign. Literally 250 flyers can make such a huge difference. And so offering those types of scholarships to all the candidates who are Democratic. And it's not like you're giving preference to one over the other. You're giving everyone a shot, is how I see it.
So what's like next for you?
That's a great question.
I don't know if you want to, breaking news right here, but we're ready.
No breaking news, but politics shift so quickly. You never know whose seat is going to be up, who's not going to be running for something. And so I am currently I'm a House District Chair, and I'm trying to work in my House District and with my representative, Angela Romero, to bring about some good change. And where we think we have the biggest impact is we're on the West Side. West Side engagement is some of the lowest and is the most diverse in all of Utah. So we need to galvanize these folks, get them registered to vote, get them interested in having a voice and putting their vote in. That is where we are not matching up in terms of getting representation in Utah. If the West Side showed up, Governor Cox out, Mike Lee out, people who don't care about the West Side out.
So, you're running for mayor in 27?
Oh, no. No way. That's too big. I don't think I want that job. No.
Would be an interesting job with an interesting voice if you were the one.
It would. I did see that Aaron's perhaps going to run again, so it should be an interesting race.
Mayor Mendenhall is considering it, although I thought it was really interesting announcing her divorce and also saying, I'm deciding it with my family if I'm going to run again. I think that'll be a very interesting series of things in the coming weeks. I thought it was interesting that Councilmember Ross Romero from the county council is thinking about running.
Yeah.
And also our Senate Minority Leader, Luz Escamilla, who is herself a woman of color on the West Side. And also County Mayor Jenny Wilson also.
Jenny Wilson, Peter Caroon.
Ooh, Peter Caroon, wow.
It's going to be a battle.
Yeah.
I mean, it will be tough.
Battle of the Titans, kind of.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So, Tenille, where can our listeners find you if they're looking for you to hear more from you in the future?
Absolutely. I'm on Instagram at Tenille Taggart. And
TenilleTaggart, Tenille Taggart.
Thank you. Yeah, I would say that's probably the best, easiest place to find me.
Great. Or at a local protest.
Yes. Or out in the wild.
Come and say hi. Say hi.
Absolutely.
That's great. So our final question is, how are you finding joy in your life right now?
Well, I will say thank you to the city because they just gave me a voucher for an e-bike. So I was able to
got one of the e-bikes?
Yes. I love it. I've been riding it almost every night and
so cool.
Spending time with my dog.
Oh,
yeah.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
What a lovely thing. All right. Well, thank you so much for listening today. You can catch Around the Counter with Molly and Friends on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or Substack. We air on Sugar House Community Radio Sundays at 8 p.m. and Wednesdays at 7 a.m.
Thanks, Molly.
Thanks.